Hello out there. I'm Fatama and today I'll be talking to you about oil pollution in coral reefs. Coral reefs, class Anthozoa and phylum Cnidaria, are often called the rainforests of the ocean. Why? Because they are a hotspot for so much marine biodiversity. All coral reefs together are home to over one-fourth of the world's marine species. And comparing to the fact that they make up only 0.015% of the ocean, that is relatively a lot. That means the reefs support over 2 million different species, which is 8 times all the species found in Australia's land area. Coral reefs are not just important for the ecosystem, no, but for so much more, including the fishing industry. You see, since coral reefs are home to so many species, it opens up options for the fishing industry. Beautiful reefs are also a major tourist attraction. New remedies and medical developments can be made from corals, and reefs act as huge protecting agents towards the shoreline against storms, tsunamis, and floods. In this graph, you can see the value of coral reefs according to the sector they serve. Through tourism, they value to 9 billion US dollars. Through coastal protection projects, they value to around 8.6 billion US dollars. Their fishing industry value is about $6 billion. And finally, their biodiversity, which holds a value of $5 billion. Altogether, they hold a value of 28.5 billion US dollars annually. That is almost the amount needed to stop world hunger globally. Coral reefs only amount to about 0.015% of the world's oceans. So to put this together in a more understandable way, if you would take all the reefs of the world and put them together, it would only be slightly larger than the state of Texas. Now you must be thinking, wow, that's pretty big. Is that not enough? Well, yes, it is big, but if you compare it to the fact that 70% of our planet is made up of ocean, that is nothing. Nonetheless, we're doing fine with the amount of coral reefs we have, but the issue is that these reefs we already have are under huge risk of damage, if not already damaged. One of the major problems coral reefs face is oil pollution. This graph shows the danger that coral reefs will be facing if, in the next 10 to 30 years, we take no action. 60% of all reefs are currently under danger of being lost within the next 30 years. 27% has already been lost previously. Another 18% will be lost in the next 10 to 30 years. And over 14% are under immediate emergency and could be lost forever in just the coming 2 to 3 years if we do not take action immediately. Crude oil contains 84% carbon, 12% hydrogen, 1% nitrogen, 0.7% oxygen, 5% sulfur, and very little amounts of metal. The direct effects of oil on the coral reefs is dependent on the type of oil, the type of organism it is exposed to, and the amount of time the corals are exposed to it. There are several harmful effects that oil pollution holds on corals. These are a few. For example, mucus production. This has a smothering effect on corals. Another effect is blocking of light, so lack of brightness. And light is one of the major requirements for corals to grow. So without light, the corals have to higher their respiration rate, decreases their photosynthesis, It creates more mucus, which leads to problems of its own. It decreases in nutrition and purification, loss of reproduction, loss of diversity, bleaching, loss of the ability to cure wounds and cuts, lack of fossilization, and lack of movement. But all these are only the sublethal impacts, meaning they're not necessarily deadly. There are also effects that are deadly, and these include tissue death and larval death. But most of you, when you think of oil pollution, immediately think of massive oil spills. But that, in fact, is quite inaccurate. David Valentine, biochemist at the University of California, informs us, and I quote, "Most oil pollution is different than the pictures you see of beaches covered in tar and ducks getting stuck in it." End quote. And his claim is backed by facts and research. National Academy of Science, which by the way is considered international world leader of oil pollution statistics, says that through many years of observing, analyzing, researching, and studying, that of all oil in the ocean worldwide, only 8% is from leakages and spills. So let's say you have a small sized swimming pool, meaning 2 meters deep, 30 meters long, and 15 meters wide. Now, let us say that this pool can hold around 200,000 liters of liquid. Imagine you have 100 of those pools and you fill them up with oil instead of water. This represents all the oil that gets into the ocean. And only 8 of those 100 swimming pools contain oil that come through a major spill or leakage. What about the other swimming pools? Where does their oil come from? While 40 of these swimming pools contain oil that come from natural seeps through the ocean floor, an overwhelming majority. Another 30 of those swimming pools contain oil from land vehicles and automobiles, which get washed down the drain and end up in the ocean. Dribble dribble effect, you know? 20 swimming pools have the oil from dumping of excessive oil of recreational boats. The remaining 2 pools are made up of other sources of crude oil. So oil spills aren't necessarily the largest threat facing coral reefs. Rather, local communities should be more aware of not spilling any automobile oil onto the streets, and stricter laws should be made of boats entering coral reef zones. Have a look at these 2 graphs. The first one is of human population from the year 2000 to 2016. As you can see, it has an almost constant rate of 0.1 billion. Now, have a look at the one on the right side. This graph represents the production of motor vehicles to satisfy the ever-growing population. This, of course, includes cars and recreational boats. These cars then dribble oil onto the streets that gets washed down the drain, and these recreational boats eventually dump excessive oil overboard. These are the second biggest contributors to oil in the ocean. So with overpopulation and production of more vehicles, this makes it even harder for corals to survive. As for the largest contributor to oil, natural seeps. There is in general not much to do to prevent these, but that's mainly because there is no need to prevent them. The 40% of oil naturally getting into the ocean is no unhealthy amount. As long as there are no other contributing sources, this oil also has some positive effects. It is the food source of bacteria evolved to consume oil. This bacteria is most likely vital in the food chain of the region. According to another researcher, natural seeps also act as a form of natural selection. Corals exposed to natural seeps evolved to become more resistant to disease and to harmful effects of oil. This is very important for sudden, unexpected oil spills. A marine geochemist, John Farrington, who works at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution in Massachusetts, says places which don't have natural seeps and you come along with an oil spill or a sewer pipe that delivers oil pollution, organisms have not had an opportunity to adapt and are going to respond very differently. Quote ended. So, you see, it is our responsibility to protect coral reefs from extinction. The problem is that we do not realize the source of the problem, and our responses are often inappropriate for the situation at hand. Often methods such as booming and chemical dispersants are used, which bring more harm than good. Researchers should focus rather on preventing damage that is done over time and then adds up, such as that of car leakage, rather than sudden damage. The future of the coral reefs is our future. If we harm them, we harm ourselves. If we save them, we save ourselves. So we should all take action to save the rainforests of the ocean.